listening to the Metal Command Podcast.
Welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. And I've been looking forward to this podcast because I'm here to talk about the new Kerry King single, Idle Hands, which is on his upcoming album, From Hell I Rise, and that comes out in May. So I've been waiting to talk about this for quite a while because I've had a lot of Kerry King haters coming on this page for quite some time. It's like anytime that I post anything about this guy, it's just the amount of people making comments. And I'm not going to laugh. Some of the hater comments are pretty funny. I do laugh at quite a few of you that really dislike this dude. And I try to figure out, like, before I get into what I think of the single and the lineup of the band, I always sit here and figure out, like, what did this guy do to people? I get it. Some of you may have had a very bad experience with this dude. There are people that have shared stories about bad experiences with him. Personally, from my end, I've interviewed him on my radio show in the past. I think I interviewed him when, Diabolus and Musica came out. I think I might have interviewed him when God Hates Us All came out, when Christ Illusion came out. I've met him once. It was a while back. I think they were, when they were touring with Exodus. And he was nice to me. In all honesty, folks, I mean, he was really cool to me every single time I've ever had an encounter with him. But man, some of you folks come out and you just blast this dude anytime I do post about him. So with that being said, the reactions to the song Idle Hands, the new single that he put out off the upcoming album, have been kind of mixed. Actually, I was expecting a ton of haters to come out and completely just destroy this song online, and they definitely did not do that. In fact, I think when I look at the comments, more people like it than people were hating it. So I didn't really see as many of the haters coming on that really dislike Kerry King on this page. And, it's kind of a good thing. So let's talk a little bit about that. He has a new band and a lineup that was announced, obviously. And I do like the lineup quite a bit. So, but the reactions from all of you were mainly positive. Some people were kind of, I think most people were either kind of lukewarm to it, like it was, it's not terrible, but it's not great, to people liking it a lot. And you did have some haters, but not quite as many haters as I typically see in a post about Kerry King. So here's where I stand with the song. For me, and I want to kind of preface this by saying I am not like a diehard Slayer fan. So I'm not somebody that lives and dies by this band. I'm not somebody that, worships everything about this band. I do like their albums, in the terms of bands with that we call the big four, or any of or just the thrash bands in general. They're really not a band that I'm as into, say, like, for example, I love like Creator. I love Megadeth, Anthrax, Overkill, a lot of these old school bands. Slayer was never really been high on my list. Now, with that being said, I've always thought Slayer as being a band that has put on one of the best live shows I've ever seen. I actually like them I liked them as a live band more than I really liked their music in the studio. And there are some bands that are kind of like that, and Slayer's always been one of them. They are a great show. They're definitely a band I used to like going to see quite a bit. They just aren't a band where I really have been huge. I've really been big on, right? I like pretty much everything from Show No Mercy through Seasons of the Abyss. And then after that, it gets a little spotty for me. In reality, I didn't like most of the albums after Seasons of the Abyss, although I did like the album Christ Illusion quite a bit. Actually, I like that album quite a bit. So besides that, I am not this big diehard Slayer fan. So with that being said, let's talk about the song. What do I think of it? And to be honest with you, I don't, the song was better than I expected it to be. Okay. I'm going to give you the positives about the song and about what Kerry King has going on. So the first positive is this. I like the group of guys he recruited in his band. I think Kerry King is, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. despite what you haters might think, I think the lineup of guys he has in this band, it's very good. Mark Osageda from Death Angel, great pick for a vocalist. He's a guy that I've always thought really sort of flew under the radar. Like, he's a great vocalist. People usually don't give him a lot of recognition. I think Death Angel hasn't missed a beat since they came back after their very long hiatus. And they've been very consistent in the quality of the albums they have been putting out. So what I liked about the song was they had Mark on vocals. I think Mark Osageda on vocals for this track honestly is probably the biggest reason I like it. You bring Phil Demmel in. Phil Demmel, of course, a guy that, just like Mark Osageda, Phil Demmel came up with Violence. He was in Machine Head. And he obviously came up in the thrash scene, back when Slayer was coming up. So a great pick there. Paul Bostaff, I mean, that's really a no-brainer. That dude has played in, a lot of Bay Area bands and obviously played in Slayer for a very, very long time. In fact, anytime Dave Lombardo wasn't in Slayer, Paul Bostaff was in Slayer. And he's a phenomenal drummer. And then Kyle Sanders, bass player from the band Hell Yeah. So Kerry King, I got to give him props. He has really put together a great lineup of people for this. My highlight, of course, of the song is I like Mark's vocals. And as far as the song itself, I do like the production. I like how it sounds. But the song itself, for me, honestly, I don't think it's terrible. But it really didn't really have me awestruck. Like, I wasn't sitting here thinking, man, this is like the greatest thing ever, right? I'm sort of kind of like, there's a lot of people that like it and think it's great. And the overall sound is obviously, it sounds like Slayer. I mean, I think everybody realized that's what it was going to sound like. Kerry King has gone out and talked about in interviews how he didn't want Slayer to end. So he just continued on in his solo band, writing songs very similar, pretty much almost exactly like he was writing when he was in Slayer. So that's really basically what it sounds like. It sounds like Slayer with a different vocalist for me. I think for what it is, it's not bad. Again, am I thinking this is like one of the most groundbreaking heavy metal songs ever? No. Do I think the song is terrible? No. I would probably categorize it, if I were to rate it, I'd say it's a little bit above average for me as a metal fan. For me, the effect it had on me, 6 out of 10. It's an above average song. The song itself. Now, if you are a fan of Slayer, a diehard fan of Slayer, or like where you love every album, you love everything about the band, and if you like the album Repentless, because it reminds me of something from that album, then you might give it a higher rating. You might say, hey, it might be an 8 out of 10. It might be a 9 out of 10. I mean, there's some comments on there that people absolutely love the song. But for me personally, I would probably say that, it's kind of like a 6 out of 10 for me. One of the things that I keep thinking about, because they are going on tour, I think to myself, when this album comes out, I personally think a lot of the album is going to sound pretty much like this song. I mean, it could be wrong. I haven't heard the whole thing. I've only heard this one track as of now. And, that's okay. It's a safe way to go about it. All your diehard Slayer fans are definitely going to go for this. I still think it will be a success, because since Slayer broke up, a lot of the Slayer fans, the people that are really big into that band, they don't really have anything that sounds like that. Slayer, to me, was a very unique band in their own right. And the closest thing you are going to get is Kerry King's solo band. And what you are going to probably get is a lot of music very similar to the last couple of Slayer albums that came out. I mean, that's really what it's going to be. You're going to hear a lot of music, most likely, that is going to sound like Repentless. And if you like that album, the album will be great for you. My personal opinion and what I anticipate, and again, I could be completely off on this because I haven't heard it. My personal opinion is it's probably going to be an album that's going to be above average. It's going to have a pretty good production. It's going to have a pretty good group of people playing on it, obviously. But as far as the song quality, The songwriting, I mean, it's probably going to be a 6 or a 7 out of 10 record, but I could be wrong. I may listen to the whole thing and absolutely love it. We all, most of us obviously watching this have not heard it. So it'll be interesting to see what that record sounds like and where we go from here as far as that album, what it's going to sound like. But I'm going to guess it's going to sound like Slayer. If I had to pick something I didn't like, I'm not 100% sure I really like the fact he's doing this as a solo band. I think for me, and again, I haven't really researched everything, but I'm going to guess he has probably written all of the material himself. I would have liked to have him found these guys who are great players and actually really good songwriters, in general, the guys that he has playing in the band. I mean, I don't know about Paul Bostaff writing songs, but in general, you have some very seasoned musicians. You have a lot of guys that, like in Mark Osagata and of course Phil Demmel, that came up in the thrash scene back in the old days. So I would like to maybe have seen him make an actual, band without his name, like an actual band name, and maybe have a lot of these guys contribute to the songs from the songwriting perspective. I think that would probably make something like this a lot better. But at worst, but worst comes to worst, obviously he probably wrote all of the material, and it's going to sound like what Slayer sounded like on the last probably 2 or maybe 3 records. And that's kind of where I see it going. I think, as far as Slayer themselves, like, a lot of people have said that Repentless was a terrible album. And there are people that love it, but quite a few people. I remember when Repentless came out, I didn't think it was all that bad. I gave it probably a 6 or a 7 out of 10 when it came out. But I do think the band lost something when Jeff Hanneman left us, when Jeff Hanneman passed away. And I think the combination of Jeff and Kerry together was phenomenal. Those dudes were just a great duo. And in taking one of them away, for me, changed. The band didn't even seem the same live. I mean, Gary Holt did an okay job, but he wasn't Jeff. And as much as Gary Holt is probably my favorite thrash metal guitar player ever, again, he wasn't Jeff. So it kind of sounds like Repentless for me. That's where I'm going with it. And again, I don't think it's anything awe-inspiring, but I don't think it's terrible. To be honest, I was expecting this song to really not be all that great. And I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it more than I thought I would. So it gives me some optimism. It'll be interesting to see what the album itself sounds like. I think most likely, again, as I said before, it's probably going to sound like Repentless 2.0, but I've been wrong in the past, and I hope I am. So with that said, let me know what you all think about the song. Let me know if you like it. Do you dislike it? Do you like the lineup that, Kerry King has for this album? And I look forward to hearing your comments. So again, if you like this video and you like the channel, please follow the show on Facebook, or of course on YouTube. You can hit the subscribe button. With that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal. See you soon.